Sometimes the worst thing is silence. It does not shout, does not quarrel, does not hit you in the face. She just sits next to you and remembers with you every moment when you were betrayed. And you don't even hear her opening the closet and pulling out old skeletons. Linda Morgan stood on the porch of her parents' house in a small town outside Chicago. The house was familiar to the point of pain, the peeling yellow walls, the faded rocking chair, the smell of old roses. She knew every crack in the facade, every creak in the floor inside, and yet now it seemed to her as if she were here for the first time. Her mother had died a week ago. The funeral was quiet, without pomp. Her brothers, Kevin and Danny, didn't shed a single tear. Although maybe they were just holding it together. They showed up at the cemetery, threw a rose, hugged Linda, and disappeared like ghosts. No. How are you? Or what's next? Just hang in there. Linda came back here with a purpose, to sort through her belongings, to collect her memories, and to look at the will. She knew that her mother had left something. They had talked about it for years. A copy of it was supposed to be in the second drawer of her dresser. She remembers it exactly. The dresser was empty. No, not just empty, but cleaned out. Even the old water utility bills were gone, and her mother had been collecting them since the Reagan era. No notes, no photos, no will. It was as if someone had come in with a vacuum cleaner and pulled out everything that was memory. Ma. She dialed the number of the family notary, Mr. Goodman. He was old, stern, but honest. He answered after a few rings. Ms. Morgan. Yes, this is Linda. I was wondering. About Mom's will? Ha. Wait a minute. And I could hear him flipping through the papers. I have an updated version dated last November. Last November? But Mom was already, yes, in the hospital. What's in this will? I can't discuss it over the phone. But as far as I remember, all the property, the house, the accounts was transferred to Kevin and Danny. Linda was silent. There was a lump in her throat. What do you mean, everything? What about her? The person who hadn't left this house for the last 15 years because she was taking care of her mother. The person who had washed her, fed her, changed her catheters when the other two hadn't even called. She remembered the night Kevin fell off his bike and broke his knee. His mother was hugging him, and Linda was standing next to him with a first aid kit. Always there, always available, as a backup. Even as a child, she knew that she was not the favorite. She was convenient. Linda sat down on the old swing and felt it creak, just like everything else in her life. Maybe they were right, she thought. Maybe I was really just sitting on my neck. Maybe my mother decided that I didn't deserve it. And then a wave of anger. No, damn it! She was here. She left her career, her marriage, the opportunity to have children of her own because her mother needed her. And now she was a stranger in the house she was supposed to inherit. She pulled out the key, put it in the lock, and no, it doesn't fit. The brothers changed the locks. Oh, bitches. She took a step back, sat on the porch, and just sat there. There was no crying, no tears. There was only silence. And in that silence, for the first time in a long time, she felt something like determination. The phone rang. An unfamiliar number. She picked up the phone. Linda, it's Susan. I've been your mother's nurse for the last month, and we need to talk. There is something you need to know. The scariest doors are not the ones that are locked. They're the ones with something hidden behind them. And you're not sure if you really want to know what's behind it. Linda looked at the phone, the screen still glowing. Susan Nursey. The name didn't say anything, but the voice was firm and without doubt. Do you have a minute? Came the other end. I do. Linda stood up from the porch, looking around in case one of the neighbors was watching. I'm not far away, at Magnolia, a coffee shop 2 streets over. Magnolia. She remembered this place. Her mother always got a cinnamon roll there. It was even a little creepy to meet there, like a summoning of spirits. Susan was already sitting at a table. She was a woman in her 60s, stout with a short haircut and arms trained by years of lifting old people out of bed. "Thank you for coming," she said, nodding to Linda. "You said there was something I needed to know." Yes. Do you but before that, do you have a home to go back to? Because if not, it will be hard for you to hear what I have to say." Linda was silent. "What else is there to say after being knocked of your own childhood, huh?" I'm in a motel. And a good. Then listen carefully. Your mother. She didn't change her will of her own free will. Susan took a small notebook from her bag. I was with her the day she was admitted to Oakwood. Oakwood is a palliative care facility. Yes, her condition was already unstable. But one day she was smiling strangely. Why? Because your brother Danny came to visit. And then the notary came, and from that day on, your mother began to get confused. And I suspect she signed something on drugs. Morphine, you know. Linda felt the ground shake under her feet. This is no longer just a legacy. It was something more, something dirtier. A conspiracy? Are you sure? Not 100%. But I've been working in nursing for 30 years. I know what a healthy person looks like. And what someone who's been drugged looks like before they slip the pen in. And one more thing. Susan pulled an old metal key out of her pocket. This is the closet key. Your mother used to wear it on a string, hiding it from everyone. I took it off her when she couldn't talk anymore. She just put it in my hand, and she whispered in Linda. "Give it to Linda." Linda took the key. It was small, old, but it held hope. Back at the motel, she stared at it for a long time. Phrases, faces, emotions ran through her mind. And then, like an electric shock, she remembered there was a metal cabinet in the basement of the house. It looked like a mailbox, and her father used to keep his tools there. The next morning she went to the house. In the backyard, near the old apple tree, there was still an old closet. And a window to the basement. She knew how to open the bars. If I get caught, it'll be a show for the whole neighborhood. She whispered to herself and climbed in. The basement reeked of dampness, but the metal closet was easy to find. She stood there as if waiting. The key entered with the first click. Inside was a stack of documents, a few old photos, some notes. But the most important thing was a flash drive. On it was a piece of paper with the inscription, "For Linda only." And the flash drive contained audio files. And the first one was my mother's voice. "If you're listening to this, it means I'm not with you anymore. And it means that Kevin and Danny did what I was afraid of, and it's not the knives that hurt the most. It's family hugs that leave scars." Linda sat in the motel at the end of her patience. She was holding a flash drive. Her mother's voice was in her headphones, weak, a little hoarse, but painfully familiar. "Linda, if you can hear this, it means my fears were realized. Kevin and Danny are up to something. I have no proof, but I can feel it in my bones." That voice immediately awakened something in Linda. Not just pain, but a primal desire for justice. Not retribution. It was justice that her family hadn't known for a long time. You need to know what they did, and you need to know that the real will is not the one with the notary. I left the real one in a safe place. Your father could be trusted, even though he left early. Look through his things. Linda closed her eyes. She remembered how her father had left little letters for her in books, in jacket pockets, even in his tool chest. Her father was strange but warm. Unlike her brothers, who became hard and dry as matches with age. She decided to return to the house. Again, this time in the daytime, knowing that she was taking a risk but no longer having fear, only anger mixed with determination. Kevin opened the door. "What are you doing here?" His tone was aggressive, but somewhere in it was a hint of panic. "I've come to get what's mine." Linda pushed his shoulder away and walked into the house as if it were a battlefield. "You have no right to come in here. And I will find everything I need." She rummaged through old drawers, looked under the beds, and searched the attic. In one of the old books, The Old Man and the Sea, she found an envelope. Inside was an old letter dated 5 years ago. And a key, and another one. Kevin stood in the doorway with his hands at his sides. What is it? You know what it is, Kevin. Mom wanted to leave everything to me. Because I was taking care of her. Goddammit, you didn't even visit her, Linda screamed, and it was the first time in a long time. Her voice was shaky but strong. And you? Where were you? I ran away. To the other side of the country. Living on your own while we were dragging this swamp along. Linda fell silent. There was a kernel of truth in his words. But does that give you the right to steal? I ran away because you two made my life a living hell. Because my father looked happier after his death than we did with him. Because my mother was afraid of you. And so was I. Suddenly, Danny came out of the kitchen. You want the truth, he said quietly. Mom changed her will, but not because she wanted to. It was because I asked her to. You what? Kevin turned to him, his eyes sparkling. I was in debt, and I knew that if she died, I was screwed. I talked her into it. I even threatened her. You. Kevin's voice was cold. Oh, are you out of your mind? And you're the best, Danny shouted. You gave me the idea. You were the one who said, what if we rewrote the whole thing? She's old. She wouldn't understand. Ooh. Linda stood there listening to the two grown men, her brothers, tear off each other's masks. There is rot in every word. You didn't just rob me, she whispered. You killed something much more important in me. My memories. Faith, my love, you are ravenous dogs. And if my mother left me anything else, I will find it. And I will get the truth. She left the house with a second key in her hand. This time it was brass with the numbers B and 13 on it. Linda suddenly remembered her father had a safe, and it had the same code on it. The night was calm, like the calm before the storm. Linda stood on the porch of the old church building where she had played as a child, while her mother sang in the chair and her father fixed the locks. It was here that the brass key led her. There was a keyhole in the back door, just like she remembered from the 90s. She inserted the key. It clicked. If there's something in there, it's not just evidence. It's a verdict, Linda, for all of us. Linda thought as she entered the dark room filled with the smell of dust, old wood, and time. In the room behind the altar, under the creaking floorboards, she found a metal box. It contained documents, old photos, and between them a will, a real one, with a seal. In it, all of my mother's property, the house, the account, the antiques are divided equally, without falsehood, no tricks, and one more sheet. Hewitt's handwritten with tears, as you can see from the ink stains. If Linda ever finds this, know that I didn't want to be weak. I was afraid of both of them, and I didn't know how to protect you. Linda's hands were shaking. And as she leaned against the wall and slowly sank to the floor. There was only one thought in her head, was not just betrayed. I was sold. Her mother had always taught her, you can't steal, even if no one is watching. And now her brothers, whom she had once protected, had robbed her of everything. Linda suddenly had a new emotion. Not anger, not even resentment. It was shame. For having once believed in this family, the light of the lantern caught the eye of an old acquaintance. Father Malcolm, he'd known her since she was a little girl. Linda. Is that you? Yes, Father. I'm sorry for barging in, but I needed to find something. He looked at the papers in her hands and sighed. I knew something was wrong. Your mother has been coming here a lot lately. She was crying, praying, and she always asked for forgiveness. For what? For being weak, he said quietly. She felt she couldn't protect you. And if it's me who wants justice, is that a sin too? No. It is a sin to hurt on purpose. But the truth, it can hurt, even though it cleanses. What if my truth destroys everything? Father Malcolm put his hand on her shoulder. Perhaps everything has been destroyed for a long time. But there is a chance to pick up the pieces and make something new. Linda has made up her mind. She will take this will and go to a lawyer. She would not be silent anymore. The office smelled of coffee and paper. The lawyer, a stern woman in her 60s with gray hair, leafed through the will, and smiled at the corners of her lips. If this is a genuine document, and it looks genuine, then your brothers have committed fraud. I don't want revenge, I want the truth. And a part of what my mother wanted me to have. That's justice. The lawyer replied. But get ready. They won't go down without a fight. Before she could leave the building, she received a message. It was from Kevin. Just 2 words, "We know." And a picture of her with the safe. Someone was watching. Someone was there all along. There was no turning back. There was no after. There was only war. A family war. Without rules. And with a broken heart in every camp. On the family war. And of my siblings, greed left me with nothing but bitterness. Them family war. Mig siblings greed left mem with nothing but bitterness. The story revolves around a woman named Linda Morgan who, after her mother dies, discovers that all of her family's assets, including her home accounts and securities, have suddenly been transferred to her 2 younger brothers. She had devoted her life to her mother, sacrificing her career, marriage, and finances while her brothers lived their lives. Now that her mother has died, she finds herself left with nothing. The plot revolves around internal and external conflict, the struggle for justice, the pain of betrayal, and the vain hope for reconciliation. There are places where life shrinks to a few square meters. And thoughts there are louder than any TV sets. The trailer stood on the border between an abandoned parking lot and the forest. It was small, old, with peeling window frames, and a door that jammed even after the 10th kick. But it was all Linda had left. After her brothers signed over the house to themselves and Linda was unceremoniously asked to move out, she had to find a roof somewhere. And a cheap trailer rented from a former school friend for a pittance was her temporary paradise. So this is what it's like to start over after 60. Without a home, no money, no hope, but with a lot of questions that no one is in a hurry to answer. Inside, there was broken furniture, a squeaky bed, an old toaster, and a small TV with antennas wrapped in foil. Everything stank of dampness and the past. Linda would lie there at night, listening to the crickets and rats rustling behind the wall, and think, is this really what old age looks like? Is this really me? The one who had plans in her youth, who smelled of perfume and wore heels. She remembered the evenings at her family home. Vanilla tea, her mother's pies, laughter in the living room when everyone was still together. She remembered how she and her brothers had built a shack out of blankets and a flashlight as children. And now, one of them cut her off from her inheritance. The other silently supported her, and both pretended as if she had never existed. The phone lights up. A message from Mrs. Harris. Has been probated. We can go to court. But be prepared, it's going to be a messy affair. Linda sighed. In the darkness of the trailer, the message glowed like a light of hope. But at the same time, it was a lantern in a dark tunnel where she didn't know if she could get out. The phone rang. Kevin. Are you crazy? And you, Kevin, when did you lose your conscience? A mom made a choice. A mom made a will. A real will. You can't prove it. The lawyer already proved it. You want to destroy the family, and you already did. And he hung up, a classic. It was always left like that, mid-sentence, mid-hope, mid-battle. The next morning, the owner, Tommy, knocked on the door. I heard screaming. It was my brother calling. If you need help. I'm not rich, but I have some dignity. These words cut into my heart, because dignity was what they wanted to take away from her, along with her house, her memory, and her old photos. And at night, she sat on the steps of the trailer, wrapped in a blanket, looking into the darkness and thinking, I am 62. I am a woman with nothing, in a fucking trailer. But I'm alive, I'm breathing, and I can still fight. It was the first realization. She is not a victim. She is not a shadow. She is a woman who was betrayed but not broken. And in the darkness, she suddenly smiled. A small, sad smile. But sincere. Because against the background of betrayal, even a small hope sounds like a victory. And somewhere in the city, her brothers were already planning the next step. Because the truth is like oil, Once you pierce the soil, it shoots out in all directions. Every family has its own skeletons in the closet. But when someone tries to bury the truth, it will come out anyway. And then there is no time for sentiment. And after another sleepless night, Linda woke up with a strange premonition. It was as if something had changed. The air became thicker, like before a thunderstorm. Outside the trailer window, the branches of an old tree cracked, and dogs barked somewhere far away. The phone was silent. Mrs. Harris, the lawyer, promised to get in touch with some serious news. Although Linda was used to bad surprises, this news going to change everything. When she went to check the mail, she found a large yellow envelope. No stamps, no signatures. Only an inscription in black marker. For you. The initial, if you are not afraid of the truth. Inside were photocopies of old documents, photos, receipts, and a check. For $50,000. It was issued 2 years ago in the name of her brother David, from her late mother's account. Linda, bitch, whispered. She sat with the papers folded in her lap and silently reread each line. The photo was of David, her mother, and the notary. The date and signature were on the back. Everything looked legal. Everything except one thing: it was long before Mom allegedly changed her mind and signed everything over to her sons. So that's why she changed the will. Because David had already gotten everything he could out of her, and then he forced her to give me up. Anger surged like a tide. Not the hot, immediate kind. It was cold, sticky, filling her chest and paralyzing her. She immediately called Mrs. Harris. "Did you see this?" She screamed into the phone. "I just got a copy. It changes everything. This is not just an inheritance case. This could be a criminal case. And Mom, did she know what she was signing?" "I doubt it. Her handwriting was already unstable, and if it turns out that she was forced, we will have a real trial." And I remember a moment my mother is sitting in the garden, holding tea in her small hands and speaking quietly, almost whispering, "Promise me you won't quarrel after I die. The house is not worthy of a family." Linda laughed then. And now she wanted to scream. Because the house had become a battlefield and the family was in pieces. Tommy, the owner of the trailer, came in for coffee as usual. He looked at her face and immediately asked, "What happened?" And I found the dirty truth. And now I don't know what to do with it. If it's dirty, it needs to be brought out into the light. And not to wash it, but to show it to everyone as it is. He handed her a mug of coffee, and she suddenly felt that these simple words were more honest than all the promises her brothers had made over the past 10 years. Linda collected all the documents, took pictures, scanned them. She sent them to her lawyer, left copies in the trailer, and hid one in the bank. She could not trust anyone anymore. She was not going to give up, and she wasn't going to stay silent. In the evening, Kevin called. Not to say hello. I thought, if you open your mouth, we're going to make you hell. You already did, bro. I'll just light a fire. We have lawyers. I have the truth, and it stinks so rotten your jackets won't last. And she hung up the phone. And the next day she received a message from an unfamiliar number. "You don't know the half of it. Call me?" I was there when it all happened. There are moments when you are at a crossroads. One way is to fight, to go to court, to hold the sword in your hands. The other is to accept, let go, and start over. But what do you do when there is betrayal behind you and habeas ahead? Linda had been lost for days. After a call from an unknown person saying, "You don't know the half of it." Her sleep disappeared completely. She began to dig through her memories, recalling every little detail, the way her mother looked at Kevin in the last weeks of his life, the way David fiddled with the documents, the way they both avoided her eyes at the funeral. She finally called the number. A man with a deep voice answered. "Meet me. I'll tell you everything." A coffee shop in the center of town. At the table was Anthony, her mother's former financial advisor. Linda remembered him, always agreeing to all her mother's ideas, always too polite. Your mother didn't want to change her will. But she was pressured. By whom? Your brothers. and another woman who represented some kind of trustee. I checked her. She had no authority. Everything was falsified. Linda felt the floor start to cave in under her feet. It was worse than she had imagined. Not just a deception, a conspiracy. Organized, thought out to the smallest detail. And she, knave as she was, believed in family ties. Mrs. Harris received her in the office. It's more than just a fraud. If we gather all the evidence, we can prosecute the case. But if I go to court, I'll be involved in a war. And maybe I'll drown in expenses and nerves. And you only live once. Oh, yes. But if you keep quiet, they win. The Linda sat in the trailer, wrapped in a blanket, drinking tea and rum and looking out the window. The rain was running down the glass like tears. Words were running through my head. Should I shoo or move on? She was not 20. She didn't want to spend the last years of her life dragging her feet in courtrooms. But she also couldn't live with the fact that she had been erased from her life. Tommy, as usual, appeared at the most unexpected moment. "Oh, do you think we should go to court?" "I'm not a lawyer, Lynn. But I know one thing: when you're pushed into the mud, you either drown or come up and kick them in the face." "But what if I don't win?" "You already have." "Oh, because you don't keep quiet. Because they are already nervous. And being afraid means you're still alive. And fear is a good compass. It always shows you where your strength lies." The next day, she met with Mrs. Harris again. Ada, not for revenge, but for justice. "Good, I'm filing a lawsuit. And we're going to ask the court whether these documents are legitimate or just a beautifully sculpted set for the play greed in the family business." Kevin called first. "We're air, you crazy. Sue us. We're a family. The family that ate me up. No salt, and you didn't choke on it, and you'll never get away with it. It's useless. Her we'll see in court." After this conversation, she finally laughed. Not with joy. The Oroshi was relieved, because for the first time in a long time, she felt strong. A week later, she received a letter. Not from the court. It was from the bank, and there was a name she hadn't heard in a long time: Suzanne, the one her former best friend, the one who had disappeared 10 years ago. And now she was writing, "I know what your brother did, because he did it to me. When it seems that nothing can be worse, life unscrews another cog. Because the truth is not always light. Sometimes it is a swamp from which the dirty games of those you once loved emerge." Linda sat in the trailer with a letter in her hands. The letter was familiar. Slender, even, with clear letters. It of only one person had ever written like that: Suzanne. It had been 10 years since she had left. No words. No explanation. Their friendship was sincere until the night Linda saw her with Kevin in a bar. Too close. A buffoon too long, looking into each other's eyes. They hadn't spoken since. But now here's the letter. Written in a firm, nervous handwriting. "I didn't say anything for a long time. But when I found out that Kevin had robbed you too, I couldn't keep quiet any longer. He has a system. He didn't just cheat you. He's been doing it for decades. Starting with me." Suzanne agreed to meet, in a cafe on the outskirts of town. She was the same, a little older, her eyes bruised from fatigue. "He started small," she said, not looking up. "The loan is in my name. Forged my signature. I was in love, stupid. I believed he was temporary. Then another loan. Then intimidation. I was depressed and he took advantage of that. But you disappeared. And he forced me to. Either I leave or he will destroy my life. And, I believed he would." Susanna held out the flash drive. "Here are the conversations. I was recording when I realized that he was already planning his next victim, and you were on the list. He said something like, 'Linda is a gold mine. She is kind, and the kind are blind. You just have to play it right.'" Linda was silent. She swallowed her coffee like a bitter potion. Inside her was rage, not the kind that screams, the kind that silently peels away the skin of the truth. Mrs. Harris turned on the tape. "This is proof, but it needs to be supplemented. We need to find out where and how he transferred the money, and, most importantly, who helped him. Because he didn't act alone. David, Linda asked quietly, but there is another figure who appears on all the documents. The notary who witnessed the change in the will. A fake, at worst a front man. At best, a bribe taker. Kevin called almost every day now. Threatening, begging, insulting. On the third day after the meeting with Suzanne, she received a message. Playing grown-up games, sister. Remember, we hold the cards. She replied with one phrasing. I learned how to play. Thank you for the lessons. Suzanne agreed to be a witness. Although her voice was trembling, she spoke. Straightforwardly, point by point. In the courtroom, where the preliminary hearing on freezing Kevin's assets was held, she sat with her back straight. For the first time in years, she was no longer afraid. When the judge announced the assets are temporarily frozen pending a full hearing. Linda clenched her fists. It wasn't a victory, but it was the first real blow back. She sat by the window. The trees rustled outside. Inside, her heart was beating hard but steadily. She turned on the flash drive again. Kevin's voice, ironic and cold, sounded in the silence. People get old and soft. And we, the younger ones, have to take everything before they do. But the next morning a letter came from the court. One of the signatures in the case was her own, and she had never signed it. When you are silent for a long time, you are not heard. But when you finally decide to speak, get ready, because all the lies soon at the seams will start to crack. This moment is like an explosion, and everyone has their own. For Linda, it was one phrase, one piece of paper, one drop. A key in an envelope with a court stamp was an extract from a power of attorney. The authorization was clearly spelled out. Linda gives Kevin full authority to manage her bank accounts. The signature was hers. Are you kidding? She asked Mrs. Harris. I'm afraid not. It looks very convincing. But there is one thing: this document is dated 6 months ago, and during that period you were in the hospital after a fall. So, is it a forgery? It looks more like a forgery with a signature sample. Someone took it off, perhaps from the bank, or from previous documents. Linda remembered the day Kevin helped her apply for a card at the bank. Naively, she let him sign the papers to speed things up. She wasn't feeling well at the time and wasn't paying attention. And now it turned against her. You used my signature to withdraw my money, she said, her voice not trembling. I don't know what you're talking about, he replied dryly. Old age is no fun, is it? I'm suing. And this time I'm going all the way. But remember, Linda, not everyone survives in the mud. And you're not young anymore. In the evening, she went to Suzanne's. The rain pounded on the roof like a pulse. I'm at my wit's end, she admitted. Everything inside feels like it's turned inside out. I am with you. And this time, no one will break you. I'm afraid that I'm going to lose. That they'll win. That I'm just an old fool who wanted justice. No. You are a woman who is tired of being silent. And there's no shame in that. The next day, a man appeared at the door of her trailer. He was older, with a face that had been eaten into his skin by time. Are you Linda? My name's Earl. I used to work at the bank where your accounts were processed. I quit because I couldn't stand your brother's acting anymore. What do you know? Everything. I saw him bringing documents with signatures already affixed. He said that you agreed on everything over the phone. I had my doubts, but the management was pressuring me. Are you ready to testify? I am now. Your story was the last straw for me. I don't want to die with the feeling that I was a part of this dirt. This witness has changed everything. Mrs. Harris has spoken. Now we not only have the recordings, but also a direct eyewitness to the forgery. And this is no longer just a family quarrel, it's a federal case. Linda felt something new stirring in her chest. Something long forgotten, hope. But Kevin and David didn't give up. They posted a video of Linda crying after one of the interrogations. Our sister is out of her mind. She's taking revenge because we didn't give her more money. It is sad, but we have to defend ourselves. Comments were divided. Some felt sorry for the poor old lady who was robbed. Others wrote that she was a Menopausal scam artist. Damn it, Linda cursed. They even made old age a weapon. She knew the end was near. One punch. One trial. But a one-on-one chance to set things right. But what awaited her in the courtroom was something she could not have imagined even her nightmares. Anger is not always evil. Sometimes it is the only thing left to a person when everything has been taken away from them: home, respect, money, peace. Anger is the truth that screams. The courtroom was as quiet as a funeral. On an AT judge, a stout woman with a blade-like gaze was flipping through documents. Linda sat on the bench clutching a napkin. Suzanne was next to her. Behind her were several journalists. Everything that was said here could have become public. And it should have. Kevin looked confident. His smile was almost shameless. David was nervous, rubbing his hands together. Their lawyer spoke clearly. Emma's Linda Cross is mentally unstable. We have medical reports and letters from social services. I was aware of everything, Linda said firmly. But not this. Not the piece of paper you put there yourself. After 2 hours of interrogation, Earl came to the microphone. I, Earl Johnson, a former bank employee, testified that Ms. Cross's signature was copied. It was not signed by her. I saw her brother come in with the papers ready to go. Were you blackmailed? They asked me to keep quiet. They threatened me with losing my job. But I'm already 67, and I don't want to be silent anymore. Kevin snapped. For the first time in the whole process, what are you, an old stump, decided to play the hero? You're a fucking alcoholic. I did, Earl didn't deny. But I was wrong. And I recognize my mistake. You don't. Linda looked at everything as if it were a theater, and there was no fear left in her soul. Only anger, but not destructive anger, but the kind that gives strength. She realized that she had the right to be angry. She has the right to scream. She has the right to demand justice. The court adjourned until next week to examine the new evidence. But I will tell you one thing. The judge looked Linda straight in the eye. Even when your family is selling you out, the law is still sometimes on the side of the truth. When Linda left the courtroom, she did not cry. We are laughing. Well, Suzanne, we are now officially Crazy Women Against Family Business. Sounds like the title of a podcast. Or a thriller. And in the evening, sitting in the trailer with a cup of cheap coffee, Linda flipped through old photos. One of them was of her and her brothers, very young. The dog with his tongue out, corn cobs in the background, smiles of sincerity. Emma, when did it all break? She asked the void. The next morning there was a message on her phone. It was from David. I didn't know who'd go this far. I thought we were just helping. If I can fix it somehow. Hurrah. Linda didn't answer, because there were no more answers. There was only the way forward. In the evening, she went live on social media. Yes, without makeup, in a sweater with a soup stain on it. My name is Linda Cross, and I am 71, and I will not be silent anymore. My brother stole my money, my life, my faith, and my family, but I stayed, and not just survived, I'm fighting. Her words began to spread online. More than 15,000 views in the first day. Comments range from tears to indignation. Someone Rudy. I was also abandoned by Moan after 60. Someone else rooting. Hang in there, Miss Linda. You speak for us as well. But the most interesting things were yet to come. Because the trial was only the beginning, and the real dirt is still rising to the surface. They say that after a storm comes calm. But no one says that this peace is a silence that cuts the soul. Not silence, but silence. The one in which you hear the real you without illusions, without family, without regret, without hope. The TV was talking without her. Something about new taxes, pension payments, another scandal with the governor. Linda sat on the old couch in the trailer, propping her head in her hand. The echoes of the trial had not yet subsided, but the world had already moved on. The like-its, the reposts, the angry comments, all of that was yesterday. Today, there was silence. Suzanne called. How are you? I don't know. For the first time in a long time, I don't know what to say. Maybe you don't have to say anything, Suzanne said quietly. For yourself. She went for a walk along the old highway. Cars flew by and no one knew who she was. And it was even nice, to be unknown, to not have to explain anything to anyone. Maybe I'm too old to start from scratch. But I'm not too dead to stop, she thought. An old man was standing at the bus stop, that he wore a thin jacket and sneakers with a hole in them, his face weathered but good. "Mom, do you have 50 cents? I don't have enough to get home." Linda pulled out a $5 bill. "Take it. But tell me honestly, do you have a home?" So. I sleep in my car near the Walmart. But it's okay. I'm alive and thank God for that. Because I don't sleep." Linda smiled, "And I don't know why I should wake up." Wake up so that someone can see that you are still there." When she returned home, she sat for a long time looking out the window. It was no longer boiling inside. It was just empty. Maybe this is what transformation is. When you don't fight anymore, but you don't give up either. You just live, even without meaning. Linda opened the computer. She searched housing for pensioners, volunteer programs for women over 60, how to apply for social compensation after relatives fraud. The list was long, stupid, and complicated. But she started. One letter. One phone call. One paper. The mail came the next morning. An envelope among the bills, no return address. Inside was a photo. They are with their brothers, again. But now they are adults. Their old house is in the background. And on the back is David's handwriting. "I'm sorry. I didn't know any better. I was always afraid that you were stronger, and that your father always loved you more. And I let that turn me into something ugly. If you ever want to, I'm ready to talk. Just not through a lawyer." She looked at the letter for a long time. Her fingers were shaking. Not from anger, but from uncertainty, because in anger there is clarity. And here it was not. Allah, what if he's really sorry? Is it worth opening a door that has already hit you on the forehead twice for the third time? Well, old lady, are you choosing again to forgive or to curse? Or maybe just leave it. She put the photo in a drawer. She didn't throw it away. But she didn't answer me either. That evening she went on the air again. People ask me how it all ended, and I don't know. And maybe that's a good thing. Though, because life is not a TV series. There are no end credits. Sometimes we just live with what we have. My name is Linda Cross. I survived a betrayal, lost everything I thought was mine, and I was left behind. I am angry. I cry, but I am silent. But I am, and that's enough, damn it. Silence in me is not a defeat. It is a foundation. Because when there is nothing left, there is an opportunity to build something new. Maybe not big, but your own. Without betrayal, without falsehood, without family advice. If you listen to the end, it means that something in my story resonated with you. Thank you for being with me. Subscribe to the channel. There are many more stories to come, and each of them can be yours. I'm ready to move on to the final big episode of All That Remains, if you want.